This video is an edited consult I scheduled with a solar provider company called Moxie Solar. They reached out to me, and since, yes, I am very much interested in putting in a system in our house, I wanted to see what they had to say. Background on my interest in solar, it just makes sense. Like, why wouldn't you want your home to generate as much power as it consumes and not have to pay for that power? Solar power on homes is one of those things I just don't understand why more people don't install it. I mean, yes, it is expensive, but when you think about what you're buying compared to other expensive things, it really is an asset, not a liability, like buying an expensive car or whatnot. Bottom line is, for me, is that the house we purchased is nearly perfect for a roof-mounted solar system. It faces south and is not shaded. The house seems to be relatively efficient already, and I want to generate clean and free electricity for the decades that we hopefully live there. Spoiler alert! I'm not pulling the trigger on this just yet. Need some time to cool off because I got pretty excited about all this, just like, when you get excited about buying any high-price item. In case you don't want to watch the entire video, here's the numbers. I want to offset an estimated 10,800 kilowatt hours of electricity used per year. Now, this is all estimated based off one bill that we had. That's actually more than the bill. Anyway, based off that information where the house is, Moxie recommends an 8 kilowatt hour system or an 8,000 watt system. This system will cost $21,200. After the 26% federal tax credit, that's worth $5,512. That brings the cost of the system down to $15,688. And Moxie has this active duty / veterans, we'll call it a promotion, where they will send us a check for $1,000. So $14,688 after all of that is like what I would pay out of pocket. Not taking into account the increase in the home value, I would break even around the 10-year mark, and after that, we will get our electricity for free going forward. I will also receive, call it a one-for-one net metering, meaning every kilowatt hour I generate that goes back to the grid, I receive a credit towards my electric bill for the full cost of that kilowatt hour. So like right now, the cost per kilowatt hour is about 14 cents, so if I generate a kilowatt hour, I will get credited for 14 cents. Towards my bill. And these credits have an unlimited rollover period, like I just said, so they will continue to accumulate if I generate more power every month than we use. All right, enough talking. Here's some time codes to skip to, information you were interested in. Now let's get to the consult. Thanks. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. One more thing, all right? This is me just rationalizing it, you can call that, or just being like, hey, people spend way more money on way stupider things than what I'm considering here. So here's that little rant, and then we'll get to the consult. Thanks. Hey, so check it out. I just did that video. Essentially, it's going to cost me $21,200 gross pay out of pocket to put that system on my home. After federal tax credit, we're looking at 14,000 something, whatever it was. And that seems like a lot of money. But here's something I thought of. People buy $30, $40, $50, $60,000 brand new vehicles. They buy a depreciating liability that only depreciates, costs them money to use throughout their lifetime, and I'm splitting hairs over spending $21,000 for something that's going to make me money in the long run and eventually pay for itself. When you think of it that way, it's like it's a no-brainer. That's all I have to say. No, you're good.
That's fine. Absolutely. So how you doing this morning?
Doing well. How are you?
Really well, really well. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for setting up the call with Moxie here today. I couldn't help but notice in your email there it said USMC. Are you former Marine Corps or current or former, I should say?
Still currently active duty.
Yeah, awesome. Absolutely. Well, Penny, thanks so much for your service there. And we can certainly help you on the solar front here today. When you talked to Melanie, I believe you talked to Melanie on the phone. Did she discuss our Watts for Warriors program? Did she talk to you at all about that?
She mentioned it, but
yeah. Absolutely. That's something that I'll dig into a little bit more detail about here today. But we'll save that for a little bit later. So again, thanks so much for setting up a meeting here with Moxie today. How did you hear about us, Clay?
You guys actually called me, probably because I did the solar energy estimator.org thing. That's probably where that came from.
Oh, okay, sure, absolutely. And so is solar something that you've been interested in for a while, or are you just kind of getting your feet wet with it here today?
Been interested in it for a while. We finally bought a house that we're going to live, hopefully, permanently, or for at least a really long time. So I haven't been able to, look into it more until we actually owned a house. Because being in the military, you move around a lot.
Right, of course. course, absolutely. I tell you what, as far as roof lines go, I mean, yours is just about as good as it gets with that big southern exposure.
Yep,
So,
yeah, I
so
know.
doesn't get a whole lot better than that. It's almost like you planned that.
Yeah, that's one of the bonuses of the house. I was like, hey, that's a nice south-facing roof there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I know that Melanie had mentioned a little bit that you guys had talked a little bit about potentially looking into Tesla power walls, net metering, things like that.
Sure.
For me, I think that we can both agree here that I am a salesperson, Clay, but I'm not ever going to try to sell you something that isn't in your best financial interest. It looks like Indiana Michigan Power Company there does full retail annual net metering. So, I mean, as far, do you anticipate experiencing an outage very often there?
No, I don't.
Yes, absolutely. So, in that case, it's going to be really, really tough for me to recommend Tesla Powerwalls or tell you that they make a ton of financial sense. With that net metering, are you kind of familiar with that concept? Have you heard of that before?
Yeah. I guess my biggest question, you already answered one of them, was that yes, Indiana, Michigan does do net metering. Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
I don't know if that's required by law or what, since they do, is it like a 1-for-1? So if I generate a kilowatt hour of electricity, do I get the full, like, whatever they charge, 13 cents or whatever, credit for that kilowatt hour?
Yes, that is correct. Yep, and so the utility will kind of act as your bank for that excess electricity that you're sending back to them. And I'm going to go ahead, give me just 1 second. I'm going to bring up that bill that you sent me here this morning.
Okay.
Now, there is obviously, of course, going to be one charge in your bill that we cannot eliminate here. Okay, now that's going to be it's going to be that monthly service charge here. That's that $15 a month.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like every other charge on your bill is based on the number of kilowatt hours that you use here. Okay, everything all the way down to the tax is based on the amount of kilowatt hours that you use. Okay, and with that full retail net metering, you'll be able to carry over, any excess kilowatt hours that your solar produces over the course of a given month. Okay.
Okay, yeah. Yep, that makes sense.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, perfect. So we will, again, I assure you we're going to kind of get down into the meat and potatoes of everything here. But of course, I do like to talk a little bit about myself and Moxie to start out here, if you don't mind. Is that all right? And then it's also going to help Moxie kind of weather the storm as some of these incentives go away. So are you kind of familiar with the incentives that currently come along with the solar?
Yeah. I think there's right now it's 26% federal tax credit. I don't know if that goes against everything or just the materials.
Yep. So that goes against everything.
Okay.
So that's whatever the hypothetically speaking, let's say that the gross cost of your system is somewhere around $10,000. You would get $2,600 in the form of a federal tax credit for that. Okay. So no cap on that. It's directly against the gross cost of the system. So if you had a $100,000 system, which of course yours is not even going to be close to, it's going to be closer to 10 than it is 100. Or that you would be able to take a $26,000 federal tax credit.
Right. Yeah.
So again, very, very cool, very, very good incentives going on right now, and those are expiring as time goes on here. I'm sure you're probably aware of that as well.
Yeah.
Here in 2020, it is a 26% federal tax credit. Next year, it goes down to 22%, and then in 2022, it goes away entirely for residential customers. Okay. All of your wiring gets run through the racking, and then what we do is we actually run the conduit through the attic of the house. Okay, so the conduit goes through the attic of the house, comes down out of the soffit of the roof down to the meter. Okay, so as far as the aesthetic changes to the house, all you are going to see are the panels themselves, and then that conduit coming down out of the soffit of the roof down to your meter. Okay, any questions about how that stuff works?
Nope.
Okay, absolutely. I know that wasn't a very in-depth analysis, but essentially what will happen is, when we install the panels, we do go into the rafters with 4-inch lag bolts, and then your shingles are flashed and blackjacked to prevent leaking. Okay, so in 12 years of doing solar installations, we have never ever once had a roof leak. Okay, so in terms of like the structural integrity of your roof, solar doesn't do anything negative to impact that. If anything, it kind of fortifies your roof. right? Your shingles are going to be less exposed to the elements than they would have been before, and then it actually almost provides an added layer of insulation, right? That sunlight, on that southern exposure that was going to be hitting your shingles, and then heating up the house or heating up the attic, your panels are instead going to be absorbing that heat, okay? So not only do they kind of, again, increase the structural integrity of the roof, but they also provide an added layer of insulation as well. All right, and then of course now we're really getting down into it here. Of course, I do like to talk a little bit about the products that we're using, as well as some of the warranties and things that are included with the cost of your system. Yeah, absolutely, yep. So as I mentioned, really there's two main components of the solar project there. The first are the solar panels themselves, and then the second is the inverter. That's what takes the direct current that the panels are producing, and then switches that over to alternate current, which is what the house uses. Okay. Now, as far as the solar panels go, again, there's two used in today's applications. The first are polycrystalline solar panels. These are the ones that you see that have kind of that blue tint to them. The reason for that is because the silicone in the panels, which is the main component of the panel, comes from multiple different sources. So that's why it doesn't have that one uniform color. It tends to be a little bit blue, can be a little bit blotchy. Now, these panels typically tend to operate at about 15% efficiency and typically come standard with anywhere between a 10 and 12-year warranty, okay? Now, what we're using are a little bit of a premium product there, or premium tier 1 solar panels. We're using monocrystalline panels here, okay? Oh, sorry, give me 1 second. Let me reload this. All right. So monocrystalline panels here are what we're using. Those are the ones that you see that have that all black color to them, okay? Now, of course, there is going to be a little bit of a silver lattice in the panel, kind of like this right here. Give me 1 second. This is probably a better picture since it's an actual panel itself. But you can see that, 95% of the panel itself is black. There is, of course, going to be a little bit of a silver lattice in there, but the vast majority of that panel is black in color, okay? Now, the reason for that is, again, because that silicone does come from one source, and these are superior panels, and the reason behind that, there's two main reasons behind that. The first is that these panels come with a 25-year warranty, which is, over double what the polycrystalline panels come with, and then these panels, tend to operate at an efficiency of at 18% or higher, okay? Now, the panels we're using, again, have that 25-year warranty, and they actually operate at an efficiency of 19.9%, okay? So, again, these are just a premium product, a much better product. They're going to last longer and produce electricity at a higher clip for a longer time, so we are using that product, okay?
Okay, yeah.
See my screen yet here, correct?
Yep, yeah, I got you.
Wonderful, absolutely. All right, so again, now we talked a little bit about the panels, and again, I think the main concern there is, of course, that they have the main point there is that they have that 25-year warranty, and then the same goes for your inverter here, okay? So two different kinds of inverters that are used in today's applications as well. The first is what is called a solar edge DC optimized inverter, okay? So this is where everything is all tied into a central string inverter, which sits at the meter. Then each panel has power optimizers on them that allow them to operate independently of each other, okay? Now this inverter is just as efficient as the one that we're using, no issue there, but there are some downfalls to it compared to what we're using. So Solar Edge inverter typically only comes with a 12-year warranty. And then with that Solar Edge inverter, again, as I mentioned before, it's all tied into a central string inverter, which means that there is one central point of failure, okay? So if that central string inverter goes down, then the rest of the system is going to go down along with it, okay? Now, that's clearly not a very efficient method. You want the rest of your system to work properly if you are having an issue with just one panel or something of that nature. So what we're using here is called an N-phase IQ7 Plus micro inverter. So what this is each panel has its own individual inverter, okay? So they all operate independently of each other. If you do have an issue with one panel or one inverter, the rest of the system is going to function the way that it's supposed to, okay? So again, this allows the panels to operate independently of each other, and then these N-phase microinverters actually come standard with a 25-year warranty, okay? So your panels have a 25-year warranty, your inverters have a 25-year warranty. It's nice when those two things kind of go hand in hand, and you know that you don't have to worry about replacing any products for 25 years, okay? All right, so again, all the main components of the project have a 25-year warranty, and then again, now included with the cost of your system is also a 15-year Moxie workmanship warranty. Okay, now this covers everything. If you have, let's say you have any kind of defective, or let's say you have any kind of improper installation, we will come out and we will perform that labor for free and fix that. If you've got a defective panel or a defective inverter, not only will we facilitate getting that product for you from the manufacturer, but we will also come out and perform that labor for free. Okay, so you don't have to worry about incurring any maintenance costs or upkeep costs with the cost of your system for the first 15 years. And with solar panels, there are no moving parts there, right? So if the system is functioning properly and working the way that it's supposed to for 15 years, there's just absolutely nothing to suggest that your system is going to quit working after that, okay? Right, so again, that workmanship warranty covers everything. Now, the only thing that does not cover is any damage that is going to be done by the elements, okay? Now, all premium Tier 1 solar panels, which is what we're using, have the same international ratings as far as wind and hail go. So they're rated for golf ball-sized hail at 50 miles per hour, 125 mile an hour straight line winds, storm that we don't see the likes of in the Midwest here all that often. It's not. Now, the great part about having the panels on your on the roof as opposed to on the ground is that they are considered part of the structure of your home, just like a deck would be, any other kind of addition to the house like that. The vast majority of homeowners insurance policies already have solar panel coverage built in, okay? Now, that's something that I would, of course, never ever guarantee. You can always reach out to your homeowner's insurance provider and ask about that, but, the vast majority of them already have that coverage built in. To kind of put it into perspective, the lady that I met with, or that I told you about the other day that had 33 solar panels, she was with State Farm for her home insurance. They were going to charge her $37 annually to put those on her homeowner's insurance, okay? So pretty negligible cost in terms of what they save over the course of time, right?
Yep, sounds good.
All right, absolutely. So again, again, all of your products are covered under that 25-year warranty, and then any other kind of issues that can arise are covered under your 15-year workmanship warranty. So again, that's always the biggest question with solar is, hey, what about maintenance and upkeep costs? All of this stuff looks really good on paper, but what kind of costs am I going to incur there? With Moxie, you don't have to worry about incurring any maintenance or upkeep costs, all right? All the maintenance you'll have to do is if it hasn't rained for, 3 weeks straight, you'll probably want to take a hose to your solar panels and just kind of rinse some of that dust off, right? That's about as far as the maintenance will go for you, right? Okay, and then in addition to that, just to kind of, again, help bolster the payback and no maintenance or upkeep, we do also guarantee 98.5% uptime. Okay, so what that means is that we guarantee your system will be fully operational for 98.5% of the calendar year. So 1.5% of the calendar year is, of course, 5.5 days. We do have to give ourselves a little bit of a buffer to get out there and perform a service request if you do have one. But if your system is down for any more than 5.5 days out of the calendar year, it will compensate you for the electricity that was lost during that time. Okay?
Okay.
All right, and then included with the cost of your system as well, assuming that you have internet available to you, you will have module level monitoring available for your system for the lifetime of the system, okay? So again, you'll be able to monitor each individual panel on a bright sunny day when those panels are producing at full force. If you do have an issue with one solar panel, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb on that application, okay? So you'll always know if your system is running the way that it's supposed to. But the solar panels do also add to the value of the property. Right? So again, now what we have here, the U.S. Department of Energy tells us that for every dollar in utility savings per year that your solar panels produce, the value of your home goes up by $20. Okay? Now, pretty much every situation that I run and all the numbers that I come up with, that number tends to be greater than the gross cost of the system. I think it would be a little bit far-fetched to tell you that you've already made thousands of dollars just by installing the solar, right? I think that dollar or that $20 for every dollar in utility savings number may hold in states like California, Colorado, states where solar may be a little bit more popular. But here in the Midwest, again, I think that number is a little bit far-fetched, okay? Now, while these panels will also add to the value of your property there in Indiana, they are also property tax exempt, okay? So while you will see added appraised value to the house from your solar, you will not have to pay any additional property taxes on the back end, okay?
Yeah, do you guys handle that paperwork with the county, or is that something we have to take to the county?
In terms of?
For the tax deferment for the property value?
So we get all of the permits that we need. I'm not 100% sure about like actual taxes, things like that. Like property taxes, you mean?
Yeah.
Mhm. So we don't, I don't believe that we handle any paperwork as far as that goes. I know that we obviously do, we do all of the paperwork, of course, associated with the solar, right? The permitting, interconnection with the utility, all of those things there. But as far as, like what, I guess I don't know exactly what, I'm still a little bit confused on exactly what you're asking.
What I'm asking, I just wondered if because like for our property tax, that's based on the county that your property's in, and usually like the county assessor's office handles that. And it's probably just, to answer my own question, it's probably just once we have the system installed, we talk to them, and then we give them whatever paperwork they need for that
Yes.
for that exemption.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Yep.
All right, glad we're on the same page with that. Now, a couple other questions that I do have for you here. I do, of course, have your bill brought up, and I did kind of like some of my own preliminary, a little bit of preliminary calculations here. But of course, I want to make sure that I'm, doing what's in your best interest and kind of planning for your future needs. Okay, so I'll be perfectly honest with you. It looks like you've got a pretty darn good-sized home there, but it appears to be pretty efficient. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, we've had the air on pretty much I think every 30 days, and it has a geothermal system. So yeah, and this is the first bill that we've had, the first full cycle of a bill, and I was very pleased with that usage.
Yes, it is very, very low. But you did say that you do have geothermal there, right?
Yep.
Have you ever had geothermal in a house before?
No.
Okay, so are you kind of, I assume that, if you were looking into that, have you done any research on it at all? Any research on geo? Do you know a whole lot about it?
I guess before I answer that, why are you asking me about it?
Yes, so I know, it probably sounds really crazy, right? But essentially, with the geothermal, obviously it's kind of like typically like an air source or ground source heat pump, whatever it may be. Your usage it really, really helps you out in those summer months, right? The summer months are where your bill, if you've got kind of a reverse role, like let's say you've got electric air conditioning and then you've got gas heat, right? Typically, you're going to have your bill is going to go in a bell curve, right? Like in the summer months, so from like December until May, your usage will be really, really low, and then once June rolls around, then your usage starts to go way up, like you kind of see here in July, and then come September, it starts to go back down again, right? That's what you see when you have a house that has gas heat, okay? Now, when you have the geothermal, it works a little bit differently, okay? So your bills are going to be very, very friendly in the summer months. However, in the winter, since you're not going to be using any gas to heat the house, your electricity consumption is going to rise exponentially. Okay? I'm talking like it gets. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is going to sound like a really, really silly question. I don't think it's quite as cold as it is here in Iowa, but it gets pretty darn cold in Indiana in the winter, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yes, absolutely. So, your electricity consumption is going to be significantly higher in the winter months. Is that something that you were kind of aware of already, or?
No, actually, I didn't know that. The house does have a wood burning stove in the basement, and I've grew up with those, and they tend to heat the whole house or help heat the whole house as well. So.
Yeah. So you may actually be in good shape then. If you're going to be, burning wood to heat the house, you actually may be okay. You may not see a tremendous increase in that electricity consumption in the colder months. Okay. So again, now I think that you're probably pretty well aware. That your electricity is of course measured in the form of kilowatt hours here. Okay. The range that you think you may be in, or do you kind of have an idea as to what kind of a total kilowatt hours you're looking to offset?
I'm thinking of about probably 30 kilowatt hours a day, which would be 10,800 kilowatt hours a year.
10,800 kilowatt hours per year?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's pretty darn easy for us to do. Give me 1 second here.
But the reason is more of an average, and I also have an electric car and an electric motorcycle. So.
Oh, an electric motorcycle, really?
Yeah, 0.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Awesome. Yep, so that'll be a little bit higher there. So yes, we can absolutely shoot to offset that consumption, okay? So we have 30 kilowatt hours, so that you said about 10,800 per year is what you were looking to go for?
Yeah, that's what my math came out to.
Absolutely. absolutely. So what we'll do here, so we'll go to St. Joe, Indiana. Now, I don't know if you ever used this before, but this is a government website that we use, and this is called KWhs. So we put in all of the parameters of the system. Again, this is based on years and years of historical weather data. We put in all the parameters of the system, our location, so on and so forth, and then it tells us the number of kilowatt hours that system will produce per year. Okay. So we go into here. Now what I'm thinking we're probably going to need to offset that consumption is somewhere around an 8 kilowatt system. Okay, and I'm going to get my calculator out here. Let's go ahead. As I mentioned to you before, we are using 400 watt modules here. Okay, so if we're using 400 watt modules, we are most likely going to need about 20 of those to offset that kind of consumption. All right, so roughly an 8 kilowatt system. Okay. So that's how I get to this. I'm sure you probably don't need me to run through this, but I do like to be thorough. If we take 400 watts, which is the wattage of each panel, and then we multiply that by 20, which is the total number of panels we're likely going to need, that would be 8,000 watts or an 8 kilowatt array. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and put in 8 kilowatts
and
here.
You said you guys only use the mono, I forget what they're called, panels in the microinverters?
Monocrystalline panels and microinverters. Now that's what I recommend using. I don't think we have any polycrystalline panels because again, they're just a far inferior product, right? But we do have Solar Edge, DC optimized inverters. We do have those, but the microinverters are a much better product, and I'm actually able to give those to you for a lower price than the Solar Edge inverter, surprisingly enough. So again, did you have were there products that you had in mind, or?
Nope, just asking.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So again, I think any research that you may do, will probably tell you that the N-phase microinverters are a superior product. But again, so you didn't really have any preference there? You're okay with the monocrystalline panels and the microinverters?
Yeah. That's we'll see.
Absolutely. All right. So, again, as I mentioned to you before, these are, so I'm going to put in premium solar panels here. They operate with an efficiency of 19% or higher. Again, our panels operate at an efficiency of 19.9%. Okay, so they're a little bit more efficient than kind of the baseline setting here. All right, and then we're going to do a fixed roof mount, of course. Now, what would you say? It doesn't look like, correct me if I'm wrong, is the pitch of your roof, is that fairly steep or is it not very steep?
I would say it's pretty average. So it's not very steep. It's pretty average. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah. So my assumption, typically what I see is a roof is somewhere between a 4 and a 5/12 pitch. So, a 4/12 pitch means that, it's really when you get past like a 5/12 pitch, that's when you would start to feel a little bit uncomfortable walking on it. Do you feel pretty comfortable walking on the southern portion of your roof?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead. I'm going to operate on the conservative side of things here, and we're going to go ahead and say that your roof has a 4/12 pitch, which would be an 18.4 degree tilt angle. Okay. Does that sound about right, or do you think it may be closer to 5/12?
That sounds about right. I honestly don't know, but it's pretty average. It's not steep and it's not flat.
Sure, absolutely. Yep. So that would be the route that I would recommend going. If we were to put this up to a 5/12 pitch, your production estimate would actually be a little bit higher. So again, I always like to operate on the absolute most conservative side of things here. Okay. All right, so then we'll go here. Now we have a 1.36 DC to AC size ratio. Now the way that I got to that, now this is probably the most confusing part for most of my customers here. But what we have, so as I mentioned to you before, the panels that we're using are 400 watts apiece, okay? Now the N-phase microinverters that we're using have a 295 watt rating, okay? So if we were to take 295 watts, which is the wattage rating of each microinverter, and we were to multiply that times 1.36, that gives us 401.2, which is really darn close to 400, okay? So this DC to AC size ratio, the DC system size is the direct current system size. That's the cumulative wattage rating of the panels. And then the AC system size is the cumulative wattage rating of the inverters, okay? So the DC to AC size ratio is 1.36. You see where I got that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the inverter efficiency is 97%. All right. Now this system here, is going to would produce 10,563 kilowatt hours per year. Okay, do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, now, if you wanted to, so what I have here, let me go ahead and bring up site, and I probably should have brought this part up first. So this is the excuse me, I'm sorry. This is the design that I kind of have drawn up for you here. Again, it looks like we have no obstructions on the roof there, anything like that. Again, I have 22 panels sized up here. The system that I input into PV watts was 20 panels. Looked like it was going to be about 250 kilowatt hours short of the 10,800 that you were shooting for. Are you okay? Did you want to stick with the 20 panels, or did you want to add 1 or 2 panels? It's entirely up to you.
Well, yeah, let's see what let's see what it'll cost to get that output of about 10,500 kilowatt hours.
Okay, absolutely. So just stick with the 20. The 20 total panels is fine?
Whatever it takes to get to that output.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this here. Okay, so then this would be what that array would look like. I have 20 solar panels here, as you can see, and so again, that was the system size that I had input on the PV watts. That 8 kilowatt system that would produce 10,563. Okay, so again, you're okay with this? You don't want to add any more onto that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, perfect. Absolutely. And then this design will be okay. Now, of course, we're going to do our best to have it centered here.
Right, yeah.
It's not final. And then our team is our engineers always send a design to sign off on before we do anything, right? So we're not just going to come and put the panels up however we want. It's going to be done in the absolute most aesthetically pleasing way possible. Okay, here. And now I'm going to figure out what your per kilowatt hour charge is. I know that you.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Now this spreadsheet right here that I'm going to show you is what we call the cost of doing nothing. I'm just going to put in 14 cents here, 0.14, and then we'll put in 10,563.
You think that estimate is high for an average year round, or do you think that's reasonable?
Estimate in terms of
like
what your usage is going to be, or do you mean the rate?
Like what our actual usage is going to be for kilowatt hours.
I certainly don't think that is going to be high. I think that is probably, with the geo. Now it all depends on how much the geo is going to run in the winter, right? With an electric vehicle as well as an electric motorcycle, I would venture so far as to say that I think that's probably going to be the consumption that you're going to use. I think if anything, we may be slightly short, on the production. But if we are going to build a system kind of based on the hypotheticals, I would much rather be short than be overproducing, right? Because again, if you're overproducing and you're not using the electricity that you're sending back to the grid, then you're not really realizing the value on that, right? So I always try to operate on the more conservative side of things. But again, we can build to suit whatever your needs may be.
Okay. Yep.
So that means that this system would effectively save $1,478 per year off of your annual electricity bill. See how I got to that?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, perfect. And then what I have here at the bottom, so this number shows how much money you would spend on that electricity. This shows how much money you would spend on that electricity over the warranted life of your array, of various rate increases each year. Okay, so one thing that I think, it's hard, it's always very, very difficult to gauge exactly what kind of rate increases you will realize, but one thing that we do know is that your rates will never go down, right? They're always certainly going to go up. So what we have here, that if your rates were to stay the exact same for 25 years, you would spend close to $37,000 on that electricity. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now this number here in the middle, this is the one that I like to use. This shows how much money you would spend on that electricity if you realized a 3% rate increase each year. Okay. Now that's the national average. I think that this is the most reasonable number to use right here. That means that you would spend close to $54,000 on that electricity. Okay, so now that number really starts to jump when you factor those rate increases in. And then this last number right here, which again I think is a little bit far-fetched, so I'm not going to use this for my purposes, but this shows how much money you would spend on that electricity if you realized a 5% rate increase each year. So again, this middle number right here is kind of what we're going to use when we're comparing the cost of your system to the savings, okay?
Okay, yep.
All right, so now I'm going to bring this up. can find, or I can give you what I'm sure you've been waiting for here, which is the price. Okay.
Yep.
I have Indiana. Okay. We have an 8 kilowatt array. You're of course going to be using 400 watt modules. Start to finish cost of the array. This is everything included. This is products, labor, materials, so on and so forth. This is start to finish. This is the full price of the system. And we do also offer a true price policy. Okay, so there's something that I missed, while I was talking to you here today, or something that I did not account for when I was calculating the cost of your system. I get a slap on the wrist for that, but we will never come back and ask you for anything at a later date. Okay.
Alrighty.
All right, so I have the full cost of the system. The full cost of the system here from start to finish is $21,200. Okay? All right, now, and now we of course have your 26% federal tax credit that we have to factor in. So the value of your federal tax credit is $5,512. So then we have the net cost of your system, which is, of course, the gross less of the tax credits as well as the empowerment program, $14,688. Right? And then, of course, now this is something that you absolutely do not have to factor in. If you don't want to, I'm going to show you what your return on investment will be both ways. But I do think that it is something that should at the very least be taken into account a little bit. Because, again, your electricity bill is certainly not going to add to the value of your property, but the solar certainly will, right? You're essentially, obviously the whole thought process behind solar, it's the same exact thing as, renting between having a mortgage, right? When you're renting, you're just giving your money to a landlord and you're never going to see that again. When you've got the mortgage, you're obviously investing in your own house, investing in your own property. Solar is the exact same concept, right? So again, I do think that this kind of does need to be taken into account, and I'm going to show you the return on investment both ways. But if we were to take $21,200, which is the gross cost of your system, and then multiply that by 33%, which is the lowest that's been seen here in Iowa in terms of added appraised value to the property from solar, that would add about $7,000 in added home value. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So your return on investment with the added property value. Okay, it's $14,688, and then we subtract $7,000 divided by $14,688. Okay, so the return on investment with your property value factored in would be 5.2 years. And if you don't factor the property value in, and of course these numbers are also calculated without factoring in any potential rate increases, okay? So these numbers are all assuming that your rates stay the exact same for this period of time, which is also a little bit unreasonable, I think. But I am just going to kind of show you how that would work, and then if you do it without the added home value, that return on investment would be just a little under 10 years, okay? If we were to take $14,688, then divide that by $1,478, that would obviously give us about, 9.8 or 9.9 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, it is a pretty darn sound investment there. And again, this is this number right here is the bottom dollar. Well, I think that pretty much covers my spiel on everything here. Do you have any questions on anything that we went over? Is there anything that I maybe went over too quickly or potentially glossed over?
Yeah, one question. So, time from contract to completion to when the system's turned on and generating energy.
Yes. Yep. So we have our rapid install team. It used to be, we used to tell people it was 60 to 90 days for a lead time, but now our lead time is anywhere between 30 and 45 days. That's when we have an install done. Most likely, we're talking about, the latest being about 2 to 2.5 months from signing to when your system would be operational.
When do I pay for the system, and is there a down payment, good faith money?
Yep, that is correct. Yep. So the way that it works, we do ask for, and again, this is something that will be, so let's go ahead and again, this is all hypothetical, but let's go ahead and assume that you signed up today, right? You would be sent likely on Monday. You would be sent an invoice for a 30% down payment, and then we ask for the remaining 70% after that per PTO or permission to operate, or that's the inspection that the utility company does, and when they turn on your solar.
What is the actual cost of the materials? I'm just curious. Do you know? Or
Oh shoot! I wish that I knew the answer to that question. I don't.
I'm guessing
I don't handle that aspect too much. I don't do the ordering of the products and things. Very very difficult for me to say what the actual cost of the materials themselves are. Like a line item quote is really difficult to do in solar because every job is so much different, right? Everything in solar is kind of done on a price per watt basis, right? So that's kind of like how the pricing is done. We can if you want to, but in terms of, solar again is something that isn't always straightforward, but in your case it is pretty darn straightforward, right? You've got the perfect southern exposure, there's no obstructions on your roof, you've got 200 amp service to the house. I assume, now one question that I did forget to ask you, your meter is located on the house, it's not on a pole, correct?
Yep, it's on the house. Yeah, it's on the garage side of the house, so west side. And then ask about the net metering. So obviously the idea is you're going to be generating the most power when you're not using the most power during the day, so like when you're at work, right?
Yes, correct.
So excess power generated goes back to the grid, and we get paid the 14 cents per kilowatt hour that we generate. Like it's one to one.
Yep, it's correct. So you don't. It's not one of those things where they're going to write you a check for it, right? It's all going to be, it's going to be carried over on your account at the full retail cost. And Indiana has eternal net metering. Okay, so here in Iowa, it's like annual net metering. So at the end of a given 12-month period, if you have excess kilowatt hours, they either disappear or you get paid at a discounted cost for that. In Indiana, it's eternal net metering. Okay, so let's say that you've got a 12-month period, and you've got 1,500 kilowatt hours of overproduction, right? You get to carry that over into the next year. It's not one of those things where it's going to go away, something like that. You get eternal net metering, so you can roll it over for as long as you have to use it, okay? And it's credited to your account in the form of the kilowatt hours. So again, it's not one of those things where they're going to write you a check for all of your excess production. You can't build as much as you want and then farm a bunch of money. That's not how that works, unfortunately. But the value of the electricity you're producing is the same as what the utility company is charging, right? So when you're building up that excess production and then your utility company decides to raise their rates from 14 cents to 17 cents, your electricity is going to have the same value as what they're charging. Right? So that's one of the big thought processes behind the solar as well, is that you mitigate rate increases going forward. Value of the electricity you produce is the same as what they're charging.
Yeah. Okay. So if I generate a bunch of excess credits during the summer, those will be applied towards the bill if I owe them money during the winter or during months that I use electricity from the grid more than I generate.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So let's say that in September, October, you've got let's say you've got 500 kilowatt hours banked, and then let's say that you use 1,500, but your solar only produced 1,000. Your bill would just net out there, right? That would be 1,500 total kilowatt hours, and all you would have is that basic service charge, which is that $15 a month.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's really good.
It is really cool. Net metering is what makes everything, kind of what makes the wheels turn on the solar.
Well, yeah, if you don't have net metering, then and you don't have a battery to store the excess energy, then it's not a good deal.
SOL.
So I guess really, honestly, I mean, I know you're not an engineer, right?
Right.
Just in what you've seen, what you know, do you think the size of the system that we just talked about is adequate, or is it like too much, or too little, or just about right?
I think that this system will be adequate. It's so hard, to base things on hypotheticals, right?
Yeah.
But with the geo, depending on how often you use the geo to heat the home, I don't know if you're going to just be burning wood the whole time, or if you're going to be, supplementing it with the geo as well. But typically what you see with a geo customer is their electricity consumption goes way up in the winter months. Let me see if I can find a bill of a customer who does have geothermal. Give me 1 second here.
Is that just?
I can kind of show it.
Is that just because it's just like it's running? It's the geo pump and the fans are running constantly. Is that why?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that is correct. Yep. So again, it helps. It's the exact opposite. It'll help you a lot in the summer months. It'll make your bills much lower in the summer, and then in the winter months, it typically tends to use more because again, it just takes a lot more to do it in the winter. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, that's even if you just have an electric furnace, that's generally the case. It takes more electricity to heat than it does cool.
Correct. So let's go ahead and say that in these summer months here, let's say you're using about 700 kilowatt hours a month on average, and then let's go ahead and say some of those winter months your consumption doubles, right? If you were to take, there's probably going to be about 6 or 7 months out of the year where you're using that 700 kilowatt hour number, and there's probably going to be about 5 cold months out of the year where you're maybe using closer to like 1,200. So if we do that, and then we take 5 times 1,200. 6,000 plus, so yeah, that came out to be about 11,000 kilowatt hours, right? So that's what we can really anticipate this consumption being. Your utility company doesn't really have any limits on what you can build either, right? There are limits on what you can build, but your system is not meeting those limits. So,
if there's any more questions, I'm sure I can ask you or somebody else there, but I think we're good for today, honestly.
Now, one question that I do have, as I told you before, I am not going to give you, I'm not a typical salesperson, I'm not going to call you 100 times, but I do like to get a general idea of when you may think you might know. So, do you have an idea as to when would be a good time to follow up, potentially like a week from now, something like that?
All right.
All right, thanks so much, but you enjoy the rest of your day, all right?
You too, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that was it. Long video. I don't have anything else to say. Like that was it. It's expensive, but in my mind, it makes common sense. It's not like really a discussion of whether you should or shouldn't. It's a discussion of how do I afford it.